So thanks for coming on. And, what we wanted to talk about today is confidence. And I kind of wanted to give people a little preview. This is my first time on Facebook Live. So if you don't know,
Me too.
if you don't know who I am, I'm Joslin Green. I'm a leadership and performance coach. I have a company called Player Sport Academy, and that's what we do with coaches and athletes. And Andrea has a great company called Fit Communications. Andrea, I'll let you do your little intro. Tell us about yourself.
For sure. So actually my company's with my sister, Allison Gervais, and we started Fit Communications about 5 years ago. And we really specialize in doing marketing communications for businesses in the area of sport and health. And in that work, we've really kind of focused on the whole girls in sport process and the issues that are involved in trying to kind of make it better. About a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, we started doing girls empowerment events in Winnipeg. And one of the things that we found that we were hearing over and over again from both parents and the girls, and we usually typically work with girls ages 5 to 15, is a real need for work on confidence. So we created the first ever confidence e-workbook for kids. Mostly for, did I lose you? No, back on. It's mostly for girls in sport. What's that?
I did lose you for a sec, but you're back.
Okay, seems to be going. We usually work with girls in sport, but it's not just for girls and it's not just for athletes. So, but definitely our age range is sort of that 5 to 15-year-old group that are looking to gain their confidence and reduce their negative self-talk, which can obviously play a positive role in everything from sports to the classroom to life. So that's kind of what we're up to here.
Cool. That's great. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. And kind of one of the impetus for this conversation was I'm getting ready to launch a course and a coaching program specifically about performance for young athletes and for coaches. And I did a little survey to former students and people on my email lists and stuff like that. So I sent it out to close to 300 people. And the overwhelming issue that came up repeatedly was about confidence and about self-confidence. And a lot of parents and coaches felt like sport in general should be building confidence. That was like its number one role, which I thought was surprising. I also coach sports as well. I coach basketball, and never in my days as a coach has it ever been communicated to me from a parent that they're like, we're here because we want you to help build little Johnny or Janie's confidence, So doing the survey was pretty revealing. And I know as a parent myself, confidence is a big issue for the kids, for my own kids, as well as the kids that I work with. So I wanted to dive deep into that idea of confidence and first ask the question, where do you think, what's your definition of confidence? When you're working with your girls, how do you define that for them?
I think that the big thing is being sure of who you are and the decisions that you make. I think that the more confident or the higher our self-esteem is, and therefore the less what we call negative self-talk that happens, the better decision makers we become. So when we have, when we're sure of ourselves and we feel good about ourselves and we sort of figure out good tricks of the trade to sort of stop or reduce that negative self-talk, we make better life decisions. So that means everything from playing better, whether you're going into a ring and you're kickboxing for the first time, or you're a gymnast that's about to do their first floor routine, or you're doing a math test, or you're, for girls, if you're dating, right? Like all these types of things, your confidence plays such an important role in so many different life aspects. So for athletes, it's almost a chicken and the egg thing too, right? A lot of parents put their kids in sports because they want them to gain the self-confidence, which happens. But then the other problem is that a lot of kids aren't even confident enough to get into the sport. So I think it's up to us as the adults and the professionals in the area to really kind of showcase that, hey, you don't have to be good from day one. Here, where everybody's sort of starting from scratch. And let's build self-confidence as we go. And you don't have to start out being the best or the greatest or be on the Olympic podium. So as much as we want kids to be confident enough to get in there, once they're in there, that confidence will shoot up.
Totally. Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, the one thing that you hear a lot of is, you need to have confidence as if it's a feeling, as if it's something that either you have or you don't have, right? And when we're working with our athletes, the biggest thing that we talk about is this idea of developing that confidence of, it's a scale, right? It's something that you can build into and grow. It's not something that you just possess, that you can kind of pull out of nowhere, or this feeling that just kind of wells up in you. I know a lot of us feel that way sometimes. It's, everyone talks about it as, well, I feel confident, or I don't feel confident in this situation. But kind of reinforcing this idea that you can establish that confidence. It doesn't have to come from the nether region or the somewhere else, right?
Or someone else, right? Like, it has to come from inside. I don't think that, your parents and your coaches and your teachers can tell you a million times that you're the best at something, but if you don't believe that, then you're not going to be confident in that ability.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, in your confidence workbook, and in my ebook, and we're going to share links for this in the comments a little bit later on, so that people can go and access that stuff. But we both talk about, at the very beginning, this idea of repetitions and kind of how important that is in terms of developing confidence. So tell me, what's your take on repetitions as it pertains to confidence?
I think it's huge. An example that I always give when we're working with young kids is, what do you do every single day that you never worry about because you do it every day and you're confident in your abilities, right? So it could be something really simple, like for a 5-year-old, well, I'm really good at brushing my teeth, right? As they get older, or on a sport level, well, I know I'm really good at serving the volleyball. So that's something that they're confident. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily confident.
You're paused and delayed. I'm going to hope you're coming back here. It might be the connection. You're still on, but I just can't see you. Okay, we lost you. We lost you for a sec. Okay, so when we get Andrea back, we'll talk some more about what she talks about in her workbook. Oh, here she is. Okay, we're going to join her again. Okay, I think she's just setting up here. So while she's getting joined, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that idea of repetition. So it's so important. I think that's the fundamental aspect when it comes to confidence and feeling confident, is this idea of reps. So a lot of times athletes will come into a situation, into a competition specifically, and feel like, I'm just not confident. I don't feel confident right now. And the question is, well, why? Why aren't you feeling confident right now? And a lot of times, the reason has to do with they aren't prepared enough. They haven't put in enough practice and preparation for this moment. And that's okay. Yeah, I'm going to re-invite you, Andrea. I just saw your text here. There, okay? It's telling me I still can't bring you on, so just give me a second. Still telling me I can't bring you on. I'm going to give it one more time. I should be able to see like a little green icon from your phone. I can't see it right now. Waiting. I'm going to try it again. Still saying I can't bring you on. Try joining again, Andrea, because I can see you. I just I can't see your iOS icon. Yeah, it's still saying I can't add you. Can you give Andrea a sec here? We'll get this figured out. But yeah, so I was talking about this idea of repetitions, and so often that's the major issue, right? It's not putting in enough time or enough reps, or enough of whatever it is at what you're doing to have that sense of confidence and to feel like I'm going to get the job done. Sorry, trying to add Andrea again. Still can't add you, Andrea. I'm not sure what's happening. Can see ya, just can't add you yet. Okay, I'm going to give Andrea another second here. But yeah, this idea of reinforcing in your kids and in your student athletes, tracking the reps that they're putting in so that they have something tangible that they can look back on and say, you know what, I've put in X amount of hours at this, or I've put up X amount of shots, or I've got X amount of touches, so that they can remind themselves in those key situations that the reps they put in are more than enough to enter into the competition and feel good about themselves. So, you know, reps, I think, is the foundation. And a lot of times, you know, we see athletes out there who are maybe overconfident. And I don't like to use the word overconfident because I don't think you can ever be overconfident. I think you can be arrogant or cocky, or you can underestimate either the circumstances that you're in or the people you're competing against. But typically this idea of confidence, you can never have too much of it, right? And a lot of it is a great thing. And those great performers, those great athletes have put in so much time and energy behind the scenes that their confidence level is, you know, at their peak because they know that they've put the work in. They put the work in behind the scenes. Can't see Andrea yet again. I'm going to try to get her to join live again in a second here. But one of the questions that that comes up a lot, you know, in terms of this idea of repetitions, is, well, what are some tactics, right? So what are some things that, you know, we can tangibly do in order to help, you know, my kid or the kid that I'm coaching acknowledge the reps that they're putting in? So we like to have, you know, almost a checklist, kind of a daily checklist, right, for those really dedicated athletes to say, okay, well, these are the things that I'm going to work on a regular basis, right? So again, basketball is my wheelhouse, so I'm going to use that as an example. But, oh, there's Andrea. Okay. Okay. I should be able to add her again. Adding. Connecting. There. You're back. That's awesome. I don't know.
All right, yay, technology. That was awesome.
Hooray, hooray, technology. Facebook. Okay. I was talking a little bit about my experience with reps. So why don't we go back? You tell me a little bit about how in your confidence workbook you talk about repetitions is, you know, kind of a fundamental aspect. So you tell me a little bit about your guys' philosophy about reps and why it's so important.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's a really common thing in anybody talking about confidence is this whole repetition factor, right? So as it relates to athletes in sport, I'll give the example of a kickboxer. If you've been training for 2 months and you 3 times a week, you go in and you hit pads and you decide you're going to go into a fight, you're going to get your clock cleaned, right? Why? Because you really have no automatic skills. You've got nothing to really work with versus somebody who's been in the gym 5 times a week for a year and they've thrown 10,000 punches and 10,000 kicks and 10,000 blocks. They're going to be more confident in their abilities, and rightfully so, right? So I noticed too that you said that there's no such thing as overconfidence, and I agree. I think that a lot of times people that are confident get sort of shamed for being full of themselves, and I don't think that that's the case. Yes, I do think you can be cocky, and I do think that you can be arrogant, but I don't think that's the same as being confident. And when it relates to being in sports and in athletics, the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. It's a law of facts, right? So continue to do it over and over and over and over again. And I mean, I know in kickboxing, often people think, well, we do the same thing all the time. Yeah, but that's exactly what you need to be doing in order to win your fights and not get hurt and to come out feeling good about your results. So, and that can go across every sport, right?
Totally. And I think something you said there in terms of kind of the levels of confidence, one of the things that I hear a lot of from parents and from other coaches is, you know, wanting so-and-so to be as confident as so-and-so, right? Kind of comparing, you know, between each other on a team, in a team sport, for example, or even another kid on, you know, in another team or another club. And I think a big aspect of confidence is your expectations, right? So if you've put in, 100 hours and Johnny over here has put in 500 hours, you don't really have any real reason to feel as confident as they are going into that competition. And I think sometimes it's a matter of scaling back your expectations to be like, you know what, this is where I'm at right now. So this is what I'd like to achieve in whatever the scenario is, right? So, when we talk about schoolwork, for example, right, and you ask your kid, well, how confident do you feel about this test? And they're like, oh, I feel great, but they haven't studied at all, right? It's like, well, why do you feel great?
Yeah.
You haven't put in as much time as we think is required, right? So I think a lot of times it's about adjusting those expectations and thinking, you know what, if I studied for 5 hours, I can reasonably expect to get 75. If I've studied for 10 hours, then my expectations can go up. But it's being able to realistically adjust those expectations based on how much work you've actually put in.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So when it comes to, and I was starting to talk about some tactics, for helping parents and coaches really track those repetitions so that there's something that you can refer to, right? It's not just something that's like, yeah, I feel confident because I think I've done enough. Are there any tactics that you use in your workbook or in your workshops to really help people put some numbers to those repetitions?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that this is something that it might be more on the coaching side of things for sure, because I think the athletes are expected to do what the workout set in front of them is, right? So just as as adults, we go to the gym, and if you bring a notepad that tells you, well, every leg day I'm doing 3 sets of 8 squats at this weight, right? Well, and then you track it, right? I think that's up to the coaches to be doing, put out those workouts for their athletes, or those, and the repetition is there, right? So if they're putting together a proper workout and they are doing those repetitive motions over and over and over again, still making it fun. I mean, that's what sports is a big piece of it as well. But I think that relates to everything, So is it the young athlete's responsibility? No, I think that's more the coach's responsibility to kind of figure that out. But in terms of just life confidence, again, like with young kids, it's the parents sort of recognizing this is something that my child really enjoys. Let's get them better at it, feeling better about their abilities by repeating that same over and over technique.
Totally. And I think, on one of the aspects of that is the quality of the reps that you're putting in. And I know as coaches, as sport coaches, but also, in any aspect of life, a big thing is, this idea of kind of 10,000 hours, right? It's like if you put in enough time into something, you will be successful at it, or you'll be at an expert level at it. And I think there's definitely some truth to that. But I think the challenge is also making sure that it's quality and not necessarily quantity, right? So you need that kind of baseline of quantity, but the quality is a key aspect of it as well. So, tell me a little bit about your thoughts about quality versus quantity when it comes to putting in reps, because I know a lot of parents, for example, are like, well, little Johnny has been playing hoops all summer kind of thing. It's like, well, specifically, what has he been doing, in that time?
Absolutely. I mean, structure is important when it comes to sports and athletics, right? So that could be taken in any single way. If I leisurely go for a swim for an hour and I end up doing 20 laps versus Michael Phelps, who goes for a swim and he goes for an hour and he does 1,000 laps, obviously there's a massive difference there, right? So it's the effort that's being put in, and such is life, right? I mean, you can sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. Does that mean that you worked hard and you did a really good job at what you're doing? Absolutely not. You could have been playing on Facebook all day, or doing your social media, or daydreaming, or doing whatever. So I think that the quality of the work that you put in, I would rather see an athlete put in an hour of really hard work once a day than an hour, or than 3 hours of being at the gym and sort of half-assing it all day. So I think that the quality is superior to quantity. But it's funny, that 10,000 hour rule, because I've heard that a lot too, that, well, if you do something 10,000 times, then you'll be an expert at it. I don't think that's quite true, because what if you were taught how to do it wrong, right?
Totally.
So if, like, going back to kickboxing, if somebody taught you how to do a jab wrong and you did 10,000 hooks, well, then you still don't know how to do a jab. So I think it's really important to make sure that the quality of your coaching and the quality of your skills are really good from the onset. So not necessarily worrying about the number, but looking at the quality of each one, so that your repetition is good repetition.
Totally. I think that's such a huge aspect of it, right? So you look at kind of masters in their field that have totally put in that 10,000 hours. But I always think back to the Renaissance, right? You know, when they had master artists that were developing up, you know, through the ranks, they were taught by other masters, right? So they were literally their apprentices for the entire day for years on end. So they were putting in time, but they were being taught by experts in their fields. You know, you look at, say, a Tiger Woods, for example, right? Who definitely put in that 10,000 hours, but it was such quality teaching from his father to kind of get him to that expert level. So I think a lot of times parents are hoping that, well, you know, I'm just going to ship little Johnny off. He's going to put the time in, and he's going to, you know, go off to the NHL, or he's going to be a professional in whatever sport he chooses. But they don't really put as much consideration into, well, who is teaching your son or daughter? And as coaches, it's the same thing, right? So how much expertise do you have in and of yourself? And are there other things that you can bring in so that those hours that you're putting in are bringing your athletes to the next level? And you look at, you know, things like the NCAA right now, and you've got these expert level coaches, and they're always the ones consistently who are, you know, making it to the Sweet 16 or the Elite Eight. And it's like, well, there's hundreds of other schools out there, but there's something about the level of teaching that's happening at these schools that's bringing their, you know, their sports to another level.
Absolutely. And I mean, the whole concept of it takes a village, right? That applies, I think, to really building amazing athletes for our country. So it's not just all on the athlete and the coach, but what is the school that they're attending doing for their athletes? What's going on at home, right? Like, are the parents being super supportive? Are their friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, a supportive community to sort of build that person up to reach their highest potential? That's huge, because you can have the best coach in the world and an athlete with incredible abilities, but if they're going home and it's just nothing but a negative situation there, or they have a partner that you know, is always crapping on them for how much time they're spending away from them, then it's I mean, those are huge factors, right? So not only is it going to bring their confidence down, but it's just going to bring down their entire vibe around their sport.
Totally. And, you know, on that note, what's some advice you have for, say, parents that their kid isn't super self-motivated, right? So they know that they want to put the time in, but they'd rather be playing Fortnite than, you know, out there practicing whatever sport that it is. And you don't want to be overbearing, but at the same time, you know, they need some encouragement to put some more time in if they want to succeed. What advice do you have for parents that are like that?
For sure. I mean, I think that being a positive role model, for one, is really important. It's, if you're saying, you know, you need to put the time in and the work in, but you yourself aren't putting the time in and work in for your own health and sport world, then I think that's a big piece to it. So number one, for sure, be a positive role model. Number two, positive encouragement, but also not floating the boat to a fake degree, right? So yes, giving them all those positive, the positive feedback, but realistic as well. So my sister gave a really good example the other day about her daughter who's 7 and in gymnastics, and she's doing exceptionally well in a couple areas, but she could work, you know, on her splits, I think it was, that aren't quite flat on the one side. So not making her think that she is God's gift to like the gymnastics world, right? So you're doing some really good things, and keep improving on those, and stay strong on those areas, but here's a couple things that you can improve on. So, and I think that keeping it in just overall a positive environment is important. I mean, I remember being a kid and seeing my brother played hockey and going to hockey arenas where the parents were just like crazy hockey parents, right? So they're screaming at the kids while they're on the rink. And then when they get off the rink, they're telling the kids all the things that they need to be doing better all the way home. Well, you wonder why your kid's dropping out by the time they're 15 from sports, right? You have to keep that in a positive way. And then the other thing is making sure that they're doing something that they want to be doing. So maybe you love basketball, but maybe your kids don't, right? So maybe finding another sport or another activity that they are passionate about and they really want to be involved in. I think that's a big piece too.
Totally. I would agree 100%. I think there's two things from that I really like to focus on with parents is first of all that modeling aspect, right? And some parents might not be athletic, and you find that with a lot of kids that have a passion for whatever sport it is, and the parents just like, I'm here to support them. I don't really know a whole lot about it. But there's things that they can translate in their own lives and kind of model that for their kids and be a little bit more transparent that most kids don't know about, right? So if there's a project that a parent's working on at work or something around the house or whatever the case might be, where I don't always feel motivated, but I have a goal in mind that I'm trying to accomplish, and I realize that I need to put in the time in order to accomplish that. I think that can work wonders for kids because it kind of opens up this door of communication and seeing your parent in a light that you don't traditionally see them, right? They're kind of this, sometimes can be this overbearing, like you said, that hockey parent that's barking at their kid and telling them to do X, Y, and Z. And the kid is like, well, I'm the one out here going to practice. I'm the one out here, busting my butt and maybe not feeling as confident as I'd like to feel. So your constructive criticism, is not helping me right now. But sometimes modeling something in a completely different light can show the kid that, oh, wow, okay, there's a different application for this. My parent or my coach or my sibling is maybe doing something in a completely different field, but I can see where putting the time and putting the reps in, even when you might not always feel like it, is going to be successful. And they're showing me some strategies to do that. So I think that modeling aspect is a major thing. It was cool that you said that.
For sure. I mean, I think it comes down to work ethic, right? Like where I think about where I learned my work ethic from, and I think mine is quite strong. And whether it's with sports or school or just working at being a better person, I definitely got that from my parents. And so I think and it's not because they were doing the same things as I was doing, but they just instilled that in me. And I think that's a huge piece for parents to be able to show and teach their kids.
Absolutely. Totally agree. So we're gonna close here in a sec, but before we do, I just wanted you to tell people a little bit about I think you have a workshop coming up. Is it tomorrow? Sometime later this week?
Yeah, we have a few.
Okay.
Busy couple weeks.
That's awesome. So tell people a little bit about these workshops that you're putting on, how they might be able to get involved. So I'm here in Calgary or out in Winnipeg, but tell people a little bit about what you're doing and how they can get their girls involved.
For sure. So there's a couple different ways that we're doing workshops here in Winnipeg. So one is through our girls empowerment events. The ones that are going on this week is through a pre-registered camp where we have, during spring break, it's 3 days where the girls come for 3 hours each day, and we're doing everything from doing different sports. So they're doing bar and yoga and boxing and sort of a different sport every day. We're doing some meditation. We're doing some confidence boosting. So lots of different empowerment things. One of them, I think, which all sort of lend to confidence for sure. We also do workshops that are specific to teams. So for example, we did one a couple weeks ago with gymnastics. We're doing some with volleyball coming up where we work with a specific team or group in the area of confidence. So, and in there we talk about, various reasons why they should love themselves, what confidence really means, both on and off the field. We talk about negative self-talk and how to sort of turn that around. And the subject of bullying seems to always come up as well in our workshops, which is they're a very interactive workshop. So it's not us standing up there with a PowerPoint lecturing to kids, because we think that's definitely going to lose them. So it loses me, and I'm an adult. So
kids don't love PowerPoints. Yeah. What's the deal?
No, that's not my favorite. So we sort of make sure that they're really interactive and fun, and the kids can walk away not only saying like, here's some really good tools for me to recognize the things that I love about myself, and also to how to sort of turn those things around when I start feeling not so great about myself. And then the third piece is our workbook that we do, which is the confidence workbook, which you can find on our website. And it really is sort of a tool where parents, teachers, social workers can kind of start the conversation with kids about confidence. So what we found is a lot of times parents really don't know that what their kids are confident or not confident about, and it's really eye-opening and great when those things are positive, but it's kind of sad and scary when it's not. One sort of story that always sticks out to me is when we did a confidence session for girls. They were sort of the area of 11 to 13 years old. And we were talking about things that they don't necessarily like about themselves or they think that they can improve on. And these kids were saying things like, I'm stupid, I'm not popular, I'm fat, I'm ugly. And like to hear anybody ever say that, let alone a young girl who's 11 years old and just kind of coming into herself, it's pretty heartbreaking. So I think the first big step is parents being aware, coaches, teachers, whomever, being aware of what those concerns are of the kids, so you can start working on them and getting better. So that's sort of what this ebook is all about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So when we're done, I don't know if you can do it while you're still on, make sure you add a link to the ebook in the comments section of this,
For sure.
this live.
I don't want to screw up the technology
I know.
again, so I'll wait till it's done and then I'll comment on it after.
I'm a little worried myself, so I'll wait till we're done and then I'll post some links. But I think that's awesome. And I think our next conversation should be about this idea of self-talk, because I think it's such a massive component to confidence, and it can be so incredibly damaging. You know, you wouldn't realize it from the outside looking in, and I think, you know, a lot of parents, if we're talking about young kids, don't realize just what you said, some of the thoughts that are going through their heads on a daily basis. So
totally.
yeah, I'd love to dive a little bit deeper into that. But hopefully workshops go awesome over the spring here. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing, and definitely let's connect again. We'll connect offline and find another time to talk about this idea of self-talk. I call it reminders myself, but yeah, this idea of self-talk and just how powerful it can be for helping kind of develop and maintain that confidence. All right, awesome.
That's good.
Awesome. Well,
Have a great day.
Thanks, Andrea.
Bye.
See ya.